Patrick, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's been too long. I'm excited to talk to you. You are one of my favorite people that I like to keep tabs on from a distance. For our listeners, Patrick and I go several years back to my Chicago days, and he's an entrepreneur that I really love to follow. From that time period. And we've had a couple of reschedules for this podcast, but we're going, we're set, we're locked and loaded on a Friday. So happy Friday, my man.
That absolutely, man. It's a beautiful Friday. Excited to chat and just talk about career.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that kind of brought us together was our love of tea. So your company TS to Tea, obviously, we want to get into your backstory, but I think one of the things that brought us together was I don't drink coffee at all. People think that's so weird, but I've always been a tea drinker, and so when I heard there's this guy and he's got a tea company in Chicago, I was like, all right, man, sweet, like do that for us non-coffee drinkers. So I really appreciate that. So I want to start off with your real unique story around TS to T. So I would love if you could just kind of start our listeners off with what were the origins of this company? When did this start? How did this all kind of come together?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, I find myself very fortunate to do what I do, and a lot of luck kind of happened along the way. But I mentioned to you, I'm pretty passionate about this topic, and a lot of it's because growing up, I was a really bad student. I just had a hard time paying attention in class. I had a hard time doing homework. Even my entrepreneurship class, I think I got a C or a D as a senior in high school. I'm probably the only entrepreneur out of that class. But I was always just didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. I mean, I didn't really have a major that I wanted to get into. And so I was just always kind of lost, right? And I don't think the education system did a great job of catering to someone like me who I wasn't into science. I wasn't into math. Entrepreneurship was really what I was into. And I didn't learn that until a couple of years into college when I started TS2T. And I did end up dropping out of school. I was a senior at UIC. I've got 30 hours left, but I just kind of said, screw it. I'm going to drop out and just start pounding the pavement. And I started TS2T with my preschool best friend. He and I had known each other since preschool and stayed friends during middle school and high school. Studied abroad together, and that's not together, but he went to Italy, I went to Paris, and we would just meet up in random countries. And that's where we kind of fell into tea, if you will. I don't drink coffee either. I don't need the caffeine that comes from it. I'm just a tea guy. And so we came back to the US and decided we saw tea all over Europe, and you come back to the US, there really wasn't much there. And so we decided to start a tea company, and we were still in college. And I'll tell you, having the university was massive. To any listener that still has ties to their university, the universities can move mountains for you. We were fortunate. They got us in touch with Jimmy John Leotold, founder of Jimmy John's Gourmet Sub Sandwiches. They gave us some cash. It was about $30,000 in grant money. And then they put us in touch with all sorts of mentors and advisors and investors. So we kind of just hit the ground running and started the company. And I got about 27 employees today. We'll do somewhere around, I don't know. We've sold well over $50 million of tea over the last several years. So it's pretty cool.
So talk to me a little bit about maybe the conversations, or if there's a moment that stands out between you and your buddy when you were talking about starting this company. Like, was there a light bulb moment, or were there conversations building around starting this company? Like, give me a little bit of feel for what that was like in making that decision to actually start this company when frankly, you're in college and maybe you don't have any experience at all starting a company?
Yeah, well, we both had zero experience, and it's funny. The actual moment happened via Facebook message, and Dan was the best man at my wedding, and he happened to read this. He read the message during his best man speech, and it gave me all the feels. And basically, the message, we had been just talking about it after study abroad. And he basically sent me this Facebook message saying, "Hey, listen, dude, I need to know if you're going to go all in with me or not," because he was a graduate, so he could have gotten a job. I was still kind of I had more school left. I was going to be a fifth year, but he just sent me a message. He's like, "Listen, I think we can do this. The market's growing. We have some connections. We can spend the entire summer." We were going into our summer of finishing college as seniors. I didn't finish. He did. He's like, "We can spend our entire summer doing this. And if it works out, great. If not, then we can go get jobs." And he's like, "But I need to know right now, today, if you're in with me or not." He's like, "It's going to be a commitment. We're going to have to do 30, 40 hours a week. We're not going to be getting paid." And he's like, "I would suggest we don't tell any of our friends that we're doing this. Let's just keep it between you and I. Obviously our parents deserve to know, but otherwise let's keep this under wraps and spend the summer trying to build a tea brand." And so we did that. And we did farmers markets, started selling tea at markets and things of that sort. But it was really one of those moments where you can't really waver, right? It's like, you can talk about it, and then you got to make the decision, right? Consider yourself on the diving board, right? You're jumping, you're talking about it, but are you going to dive? Are you going to go in? Because you can't start a business from the diving board. You got to jump into the pool. And so that was really the decision we made, to just go all in. And I quit my job. I was not great. I was working at Chili's. I was a five-year Chili's veteran. That's actually the only job I've ever had before this was Chili's, it's kind of crazy to me. I've never submitted a resume to anybody in my life, which is, I don't even think I have a resume. I'd have to check. I don't know if I do. But that was kind of the moment. It was like, we're going to do it or not? And I said, "You know what? You're going to believe in me. I'll take a chance and let's do it." And so that summer we did it.
That's, I mean, I just get chills when I hear stuff like that. Especially your analogy around jumping in a diving board. So I want to go to that moment for a second. And what was in your head? I mean, what were the pros and cons? What were you weighing in order to make that decision? Because I think a lot of people, especially right now, right? We have this the great resignation thing that's going on right now, right? People are leaving their jobs, or people have had dreams of doing something else, right? Maybe taking a little bit more control over their lives. And they get to this point where they have to commit, and you have to make a decision, and you don't know what the outcome is going to be like. And I think that's where a lot of people sort of stop, right? Like, we do a lot of daydreaming. But when you get to that, it's like, how do you make that leap? And so I'm just curious as to what was going through your head, at that seminal moment, in your life.
I think a lot of it, Mike, came down to, I had no clue what I really wanted to do, right? Like, just going into school, like I said, I don't think I submitted for my major until my senior year. I was just going through the motions, and I had no clue what I wanted to do. And you start getting to this point where you're with a lot of people who are telling, "I'm going to go apply for a Big Four. I'm going to be," and I'm all like, "What the?" I have no clue what I actually want. I loved working at Chili's, but I obviously couldn't stay there forever. But I loved the idea of being able to work with one of my best friends every day, and he is someone I truly admire. He's very smart, way smarter than I am. And not knowing what I wanted to do, and then just trying to start my own thing, that felt right. It was, I knew from, might sound crazy, but I knew from my days at Chili's that I was skilled. I started at Chili's as a host, and I rose through the ranks and became the quality control manager. And it was really the only success I'd ever had in my life, because I sucked at school. I was never got good grades. But that kind of showed me that I started and I had that job for 5 years, and I started as a host and kind of rose to the top in the back of the kitchen.
And that was all in
It
college?
showed me.
That was all in college?
Yeah, it was all in college. It was in college, so I had just a side job to help pay for some college, and that showed me that I could be successful. Right. That it wasn't the school, the paper that I failed, or the test that I couldn't pay attention for. It was when I went to Chili's, I actually made a difference there, and that felt good. And so I knew I had skills, and to be able to put them to use for myself every day. I like that idea, and I did have some support from my parents, which was really helpful. They believed in it. My dad and Dan's dad were good friends. They're neighbors, so we would just go out, to dinner with our parents, and my dad would ask Dan's dad, like, "What the hell do you think these kids are doing?" And they saw us working so hard. It kind of showed them, like, man, these guys are serious. So it was really just not really understanding what I wanted to do, but understanding that I believe I can be successful no matter what I put my mind to, and saying I'm going to put my mind to a tea business. And so I did, and that's kind of why we got started, and why I jumped, if you will.
Yeah, I think if I could summarize my experience, which is, similar to yourself, in college, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, the world's big. There's a lot of things you could do, right? And to a skilled person, to your point, right? Like, you believe you have applicable skills, or you can at least acquire them. There's almost too many options. And so I think, like, one of the helpful things for people is to sit there and say, when there's kind of option overload, like, why not sort of choose yourself? Like, why not apply that to something that you're going to control and do? And yeah, it might fail, but the thing where you go work for somebody else might fail too. There's a lot of, like, kind of risk reward calculus. I think some people get, worked up in, but at the end of the day, I think, like, what I've realized, and what I think I'm trying to help other people realize, is that, like, over your working life, you're going to put a lot of time in, and it's actually not as risky as you think. It might be risky, like, in the short term, like, oh, your idea doesn't work, but then you can, like, there's nothing that says that's the end. Like, there's another horse you can get up on. And I think, like, the more people that realize, and I think more people are realizing this, and it gets into the great resignation. Like, I'm going to choose myself in some way or another. I'm going to choose, like, to control my circumstances and let the chips kind of fall where they may. And so for you, as, like, a college student and a young person, like, I really admire you for that, because I'm a little bit older than you, just a little bit. And it's taken me kind of longer to kind of figure that out. But that's, like, kind of a central theme of my message to, like, our audience, or that I'm trying to convey, is figure out a way to kind of, like, choose yourself, and bet on yourself. So I think that's kind of a cool part of your story. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just think that, and you have to, when you do that, you have to understand that things are going to get a little rocky before they get stable. And that just has to be something you kind of also go all in on and commit to. I had to, because I did quit my Chili's job, which was part of the agreement with me and my partner going all in, was we're literally going to do this every day from start to finish, 9 to 5. Like, that was our job. And I had to ask buddies for money because I couldn't pay rent at one point. I ended up asking 2 friends for $1,000 a piece, and then my cousin and also my uncle, 4 different occasions. I asked them for $1,000 to help me pay rent, and that was very difficult. But I think my friends and my family saw what I was doing, and they're like, you know what? I'll give you the $1,000. You'll pay me back. Just don't worry about it, but keep working hard. Like, it's cool to see you actually put your mind to something. And that was tough, man, because my mom basically said when I asked her for money, she said, go back to Chili's and go, that's how you can get money. So you have to be okay with a little bit of uncertainty, rockiness in the beginning. That was really tough.
And I want to ask another question, kind of going back a little bit around what you said about not knowing what you want to do. I certainly felt that way. I feel like I still feel that way in a lot of ways, but especially so like in college. What do you feel like is the problem around guiding people into career paths or into things that they want to do? Is that at like the parent level? Is that at the higher education level? I just feel like there's a lot of people that have this problem, and I haven't really found a great solution to it.
So that's a great question. I don't really know. I mean, my father is a PhD scientist, so he's as smart as you can be. The guy's a wizard, really. And I'm like the total opposite. And he tried to get me to do these science classes growing up. He put me in like chemistry classes, and all this. He's got patents on chemistry, and I hated it. I just hated it. Like he made me go on. I'll never forget. He made me take like weeknight chemistry classes, where he'd bring me in. He works for Honeywell, and he would bring me into the Honeywell HQ down in Des Plaines, and not the HQ, but the office, and make me take these chemistry classes. And I think he kind of pushed me away from science a little bit, but it may also be that he introduced me to science and I realized I didn't like it, so I pushed myself away from it, right? I was introduced to science at a very young age because of my father. I just didn't like it. And that kind of pushed me away from really, I just didn't like it. So I don't know. My parents never really taught entrepreneurship, or they weren't entrepreneurs. I will say my mother may be kind of an entrepreneurial life, but I don't. And then your teachers never tell you should go out and start a business. They're going to tell you should go work for a company. So it's I don't know where you get it. I guess for me it was my friends. That's the ones that pushed me to do it. That was my influence.
Yeah, I feel like similar story. Like my dad's not a scientist, but he's really smart. He's a corporate lawyer and really, really smart. And he was hands off in terms of like, which I credit him. Like he was like giving me space, right? My parents were like, do what you want. I think they're probably scared sometimes, but like gave me space. And I think that's great. But I also think that I think there's massive room in this system. It's not I'm not talking about parents necessarily, but like college mentorship, like real world mentorship, as a way to sort of like really fast see a whole bunch of different jobs and opportunities and things like that, and very quickly roll through them or get some experience in doing those. Maybe it's a week, right? To figure that out. Yeah, I like this. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like a shotgun blast approach kind of thing. Because I feel like I didn't have that at all. And therefore, look, at the end of the day, it's on me to figure that out, but it's kind of an overwhelming,
right.
It's kind of an overwhelming issue. So I just want to see if you had any thoughts on that. But I want to pivot a little bit to your role in what you do now, because you've gone through the grind. You went from zero to something, and you've done that. And there are a lot of people maybe aren't going to necessarily do that, but today you're trying to grow and steward an organization forward, and you need people for that. You need good people.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask a little bit about what you think is important for people who work at your company, what you hire for, what you look for, And especially like I'm interested, because you have this unique lens, like you admittedly weren't a good student. So maybe you're not necessarily looking at what's your GPA out of college and those types of things. So I want to kind of get your perspective on like how you hire and what you look for in the people that you bring into your organization.
Man, it's a tough. I wish there was a blanket answer for how to hire the right way. I mean, I've been burned several times on certain hires, and I've also succeeded on certain hires. I think one of the things that has rang true is they have to be someone I can just get along with, like truly, like someone that you want someone with different skill sets, but can you sit down with them and for me watch a game, or sit down with them and have like an actual conversation where you don't feel like you're forced to have that conversation? Because at the end of the day, man, you said it, you're going to be with these people all day long. I talk to my employees more than I talk to my wife in certain weeks, right? I've certainly talked to all of them more than my mother and my father this year, without question. And so it's like when I'm looking at, I need to make sure I can get along with them. Can we sit down at a lunch and just chill, just relax, actually have a good time? If it's a yes, then it might sound like a kind of a dumb answer, but if we can, then there's a good chance I'll want to hire you. If it's forced, like I tried to hire a couple of guys who had the resume, if you will, right? Checked out all the boxes, had the experience, but they just weren't a good fit for the company. And a lot of it was because I didn't get along with that guy. I thought he was, it just wasn't my type. But his resume was perfect. His resume exactly what you wanted, but it was a burn. It burned me. So truly, you got to get along with your employees, man. Like you got to like them. Like, dude, you're gonna spend what 8 hours, 40 hours a week with these people. So if you get along with them, you're probably gonna enjoy what you do. If you don't, work's probably gonna suck.
What type of roles are you hiring for in the company? So maybe not necessarily like right at this moment, but give our audience a sense of the types of people or the types of work that gets done within your company.
Sure. So we've got about 27 employees. My most recent hire was a social media manager. She came from the University of Illinois, fresh out of school. And we also are hiring. I've got an operations team of about, 15 people. Some of them are producing product, packing tea, labeling products. So I've got a full span of salespeople, marketing people, and operations people that we hire for the company.
Because you're multi-channel, right? I mean, I believe and please correct me if I'm wrong, in the beginning, it was really kind of direct into grocery and store shelves.
Yep.
And over time, you've pivoted, I assume, more of your mix to online, Amazon channel, and the like. So you cover a decent amount of ground there in terms of the skill sets that need to be had.
Yeah, we started exactly like that. We're now 60% online, 40% retail, which is exactly like you said. And so we're hiring a lot more e-commerce talent as well. People that understand Amazon and e-com. One of my employees actually lives in Germany. He signs on during the business day with us, which is, I think it's in Germany, it's like from 3 to 11 o'clock. But now with the remote work, you can do things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I run a fully remote operation. I've pretty much been a remote rogue entrepreneur, consultant, or business owner for pretty much my entire career. So I have an interesting take on what I think works and in that realm. But before we got on, you were kind of talking about how you really love to be in the office and you encourage your employees to be in the office. And so talk a little bit about like the last, 18 months and what COVID has done to, and maybe how Tiesta has managed through that whole work office ordeal.
Yeah, so we've got kind of two offices, one with our distribution center where we're shipping the physical product, and then one downtown, which is I'll call our sales and marketing office. Um, the sales and marketing office, I mean, we signed a 5-year lease right before COVID. We pay a lot of money every month for this space. It's about 5,000 square feet. And I think there's maybe one person there right now in the 5,000 square feet. I like to call it, it's like your little office mansion when you go there, because no one's occupying any space. So my employees go in twice a week at their discretion, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it does kind of suck. But then when you go to our other facility, we've got, because you have to be there, right? We've got physical product that we have to ship out, and they have to go in every day. And it's magical, man. I'll tell you, when I go in there, it feels so good to see everybody, and they're all smiling. And, you know, I really care a lot about those guys. I probably should have mentioned this, but I think 7 of the people of my 27 all went to my high school. So I mentioned you have to get along with them. You know, I've called up a lot of buddies from high school who I liked and said, hey, what are you doing? And brought them on. But yeah, I mean, having the place where they're always there because they have to be it feels really good to go there and see them. And, you know, you feel kind of empty when you go to the sales and marketing office, and it's just dead, man. It's just dead. No one's in these buildings downtown. You got all these high rises and you got no one in them. It's kind of weird. It's an eerie feeling.
So you're very pro be in the office guy. I'm getting the feel for. How have your employees felt about that whole transition?
You know, we made sure to make our policy with them in mind. You know, we asked them what they really wanted to do, because at the end of the day, your employees are just so important. And so, like I said, I get along with my employees, so they don't mind coming in 2 or 3 days a week. You know, I do see them. My sales and marketing guys, I see at least twice a week, which is great. And so they don't mind coming in. I think they do enjoy what I'll call convenience of working from home. On Fridays they work from home. On Mondays they always work from home, and I think they enjoy that. But I do think they also enjoy the opportunity to come in a couple times a week. I know my sales guy, he loves it. He's in a couple times a week with nobody there, and he doesn't, you know, I don't tell him he has to be in there, but he'll just go and sit in the little office mansion by himself, blast his music, and get his stuff done. So they don't mind it. I do think you have to be mindful that you can't do it every day. Not anymore. That's just it is unreasonable. I will say, like, as much as I like it, doing it every day is unreasonable. You know, today I worked from home because I got some guys coming that are dropping something off, and I have to be here, right? And saved me 40 minutes, and I'll probably get to watching my game a little earlier this evening because I'm not going to have to sit in Chicago traffic. So it does make sense. I understand it, but I do think it's important to have a little bit of interaction with at least some of the key stakeholders, the guys I need to work with every day, my sales guys and my marketing guys.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing from a lot of different companies. So your size on up to even 1,000 person and beyond companies is that kind of this hybrid model is seemingly sort of the long-term solution to everything. Because I think what COVID's definitely shown is that you know, working remotely is a convenience for a lot of people. I would say especially like working mothers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a major convenience and working, you know, fathers who maybe have a little bit more household responsibilities. It's just a major convenience. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's really hard to replace kind of the spontaneity of the office and just being able to, you know, physically talk to somebody and kind of yuck it up with them and have build that culture and that camaraderie. It's really hard to do over video. So that is definitely what I'm hearing. So do you feel like that is kind of like your long-term plan, or you still feel like you're operating on like a more of a short-term window?
So I think what's interesting about that model, Mike, is it might not be super financially feasible for some people, right? Like we're kind of forced into this. We forced into the office because we signed a 5-year lease before COVID, so we have no choice. But to think that we would pay the same amount of money if the lease was expired to have 2 to 3 days a week, we'd probably have to rethink it. Probably at the very, you still want to see your employees, but maybe you have a very, very small space. So I think it'll be interesting to see if how the financials work when all these people are off their leases. Like, are you really going to pay for a beautiful office that's only getting used 2 to 3 days a week? You know what I mean? I mean, you look at some of those campuses, Facebook, Google, it's like, why pay all that money for an office that's getting half of the use? It's a perk for the employees, but I don't think it's financially feasible for the corporations.
Right. It could be a third of the size, half the size, and you have more kind of rotating desk, shared desk type spaces where, half the team is in on Tuesday, half is in on Wednesday using the same resources. Yeah. I've talked to some corporate people and CEOs that have plans to downsize their office space by 50%. And that's,
it makes sense.
It's got
our landlords won't let us off our lease.
Right.
I mean, it's brutal because we're trying to get out of it because we're paying a pretty penny every month. Yeah. And we're trying to get out of it. Like no one's there and it's a ton of cash and they're not budging. They're making us stick. They're not reducing the cost. And it's kind of brutal. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I think that's a big reckoning that's going to happen. And your landlord probably sees that trend and is scared. So they're going to keep you in there as long as they can.
I had to hire a lawyer to look into how we can get out of this lease because it doesn't make sense for another 5 years. I'm going to be paying $15,000 a month. Yeah. Like I'm not just going to keep paying that every month for 2 to 3 people to go in and sit in this huge mansion, and for these landlords to literally not try and work out a deal with us. Like it sucks. I had to get a lawyer involved, but that's what it's coming to.
Right. Yeah. It's a really interesting problem. It has ramifications for, central business districts, unfortunately, as we talked about, like Chicago before we started recording. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out, but you're right. I think from a financial perspective, it doesn't make sense to have the same square foot office space and pull this hybrid model off. Like those two things are incompatible. So we're going to kind of see what is the mix, how many people come all the way fully back to the office versus not. I think that's going to be kind of the calculus. So, what's next? Like, what's next for you guys? Where do you see growth and innovation for your company? Like, what most excites you about the future of your company right now?
I think what excites me the most of our company is, it might sound kind of crazy, but it's the opportunities you have with marketing. I mean, social media is it's changed the game of business so much right now. I mean, you can reach audiences that you never reached before in such a very quick amount of time if your marketing is right. So I'm excited really next year. I think marketing is going to fuel the growth. The more eyes you can get on your brand, the more customers that visit your website, the more that are going to convert. And with social media, TikTok, Instagram, you can blow up your brand if you play those cards right. And that's what I'm the most excited about next year is what can we do on marketing to fuel some more growth. I mean, once you get into a lot of the retail stores like the Targets and the Walmarts, it's like, well, where else is the growth going to come from? And I think it's just more consumers drinking our product more often. And I think marketing can really help with that.
Are there any particular brands that you're kind of looking at as the kind of playbook to follow on that?
I think I wouldn't say playbook. There's definitely brands that I think have what I'll call crossed the chasm with marketing that you want to, follow. I think Truff, the hot sauce brand, is one of them. They blew up just via social media. If you've heard of them, it's a truffle infused hot sauce. But I want, you kind of have to carve your own playbook. You got to kind of figure out who you want to be. It's like when you try to copy someone else, or, I've looked at trying to do this, trying to do that. It just comes off unauthentic. So I think you got to stick to doing one thing and just kind of blow it out with your marketing message. And Truff really does that well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not a marketing guy. And so I've been actually I'm doing a couple side projects, and I'm trying to learn more about what flips that switch, right? And so I'll definitely check them out as an example and a standout of what, that kind of looks like. I want to pivot back a little bit to people like college age. Okay. Think about yourself right before you started this journey to kind of bring their conversation back. What do you say to people that are in that spot and maybe don't know what they want to do, but maybe they think they need more experience before starting a company, or before doing a project, or before kind of going out on their own? What do you say to those people who want to kind of do it now?
That's a tough question. I would say the first thing I'd say is, Jimmy John always left me with one quote that just continues to ring true to me and in my mind. It's always listen to your customers and outwork your competition. If you do those two things, you'll always win. And for me, that was I would guess outworking my competition it's natural. It's like, I could outwork anybody if I really wanted to. And the other thing is, like, every day you're going to find a roadblock, and take that roadblock, identify what it is, and figure out how you can get around it, right? Figure out what resources you need to beat that roadblock down. And don't let that roadblock stop you, because you're gonna have how do I do this? Well, instead of saying how do I do it, go figure it out, right? Go Google it, go ask somebody. But really, just if you outwork your competition, and when you see a roadblock, just figure out what it is and how to overcome it. It sounds so cliche, but that's the gist of it. Like, what's your problem? Well, go solve it. Figure out how to solve it. Figure it out.
Excellent advice. What's next for you personally? I just saw, I think, a cat roll by behind you there a little bit.
Oh, shit.
What's on the, like, away from work, what's on the docket for you? What are you interested and excited about, or prioritizing in the next 1 to 5 years?
Great question. I started a couple other businesses. I got a patent on a product. I love creating for myself. Like, once you start a business, it's a drug that you want to do again and again and again. And maintaining a business isn't nearly as fun, if I may say that. I love what I do, don't get me wrong, but maintaining and managing is a lot harder for me than creating. So in an ideal world, I think I'd love to sell this business in the next 3 to 5 years and start working on I have this patent that I created, and I'd like to focus some time and energy on that. But I haven't really done anything with it. But I guess when you're an entrepreneur, you don't do it for the money. It's not about the money. You do it for the what's going to excite you when you wake up in the morning, right? Like, what's the first thing you're going to check? Most people aren't going to check work, but if you can figure out a way to make that, something where you're excited to check work, man. And that's, for me, that's creating, right? Creating things. And I'll show you the patent I have is I combined this. So basically, this has a bottom dispensing mechanism, Have you ever seen this device, the tea brewer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've got like 3 of them.
Okay,
Yes. So for the audience, this is essentially a loose leaf tea brewer. It's a contraption that you can put loose leaf tea in the top, brew it in water, hot water, and then set it on top of a cup, and it drains out and drains all of the leaves out of the actual tea, so you don't get the leaves in the tea that you drink.
Yeah. And so I basically took that technology, combined it with this, which is a hot water boiler. I've got a patent for the first ever self-contained electronic boiling and straining system. So, it's cool to have the patent, and I want to do something with it. So for anyone who starts a business that's listening, you're probably not just going to start one.
Yeah, I do agree with that. It's hard to stop once you've and it's all about just building momentum and seeing success. So that's why I always say, if you're at that precipice and you have an idea and you think it would be cool, but you think you don't have enough experience or you don't have X, Y, or Z credentials to do it, the optimal path is to just do it. Because even if that fails, what you learn and the momentum you gain for the next one is priceless.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And one of the rules that I kind of stick to in my mind is, if I can't stop thinking about something for longer than 6 months, I got to do it. Because a lot of times you'll think of something, but it'll be a fad for like a month or two. But if you start thinking about something like consistently every month, you're thinking about it, and 6 months in, you're like, man, I'm still thinking about this, then just do it. You're never going to at that point, you're never going to stop thinking about it unless you're just trying to do it. And it's like, I remember with this, when I started this thing, it was like 4 a.m. and I couldn't stop thinking about this idea. And I'm just like, fuck it. So I got up at 4 a.m., went to my office, started emailing some guys in China, started working on creating a prototype, and that's it. And so I got a patent. It's pretty cool, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's what's like, all right, then just go do it.
I love that. That's a great heuristic to use. Perfect. Patrick, where else can people find out more about you, TS to T, maybe the roles that you have available? Where can people generally find out more about you and what you're doing?
So TS2T.com is our website. Follow us on socials. TS2T, spelled like Fiesta, but with a T. And yeah, there's a career page on our website. We're always hiring, looking for great people. And yeah, that's where you can find us. And if you want to use the code, we can do a code. TeaTime20 will get you 20% off your first order.
Okay, we will put all of those links and the code and everything in the show notes for the show.
Perfect.
We'll put up probably early next week. Patrick, man, thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited to catch up with you. This was great talking, and I really appreciate your time on the podcast.
Likewise, man. Great to see you, and thanks for having me. It was great to chat about the topic. So thank you, and enjoy your Friday, my brother. It's Friday. Enjoy it.
All right, you too, man. Thanks so much.